Beautiful. So we're learning Igeret HaKodesh, Epistle 15. And today is Chai Elul, 18th of Elul. As we ended off yesterday, that we can understand, we ended off by saying that you can understand the divine structure by understanding yourself. Today's lesson, although ashes are from wood, you burn wood, you'll have the end product would be ashes. After burning the wood, they have lost almost all comparison to their original form. You look at the plank of wood that was burnt, you can't even compare what it was before and what it is now, right? So too is the distance from Avram's love of God, a characteristic of the divine soul, and its source, godly love. Although our capacity to love God is a derivative of godly love, it is so vastly reduced in its human expression. So it really tells us there are two types of love. There's the love of God that Avraham Avinu had, and that there's the love of God in its core, in its source. So he said, even though Avraham Avinu's love was amazing, it was unbelievable, but it was still a human's love. Human's love is limited in comparison to the supernal, spiritual, or in this case he writes its source, godly love. The true godly love is much higher, much greater. Like making a comparison between the wood or the ashes once it was burnt. The ashes are also wood, but there's no comparison between what they were and what it is now.
נכון.
So although our capacity to love God is a derivative of godly love, it's only a derivative of godly love, it is so vastly reduced in its human expression. So any godly love that a human being had or has, it's reduced. Human expression, it's how we relate to Hashem, how we love Hashem, how we connect with Hashem. There's actually a teaching of Chassidut, Kabbalah, about this, the last week Parsha, which Parsha mentioned, main theme of the Parsha was the blessing in disguise, the curses, right, the 98. So the Parsha speaks about the first part of the Parsha speaks about the Bikurim. Bikurim is the first foods that we are obligated to give, and you have to take the food when you, let's say you have a fig tree, okay? So the first food that grows, you round it, you put it in a brown bag, put a rubber band around it, and then when it grows, you know that this is the first food, just to identify it, and you take the first food, you bring it to Hashem, bring it to Yerushalayim, and you're thanking Hashem for all the good that He gave you. They say that thanking to Hashem for the good that He gave you is only one part of it. The real thanking to Hashem, this is really the novelty of the idea. It says the real thanking to Hashem is the connection that we have with Him. The fact that we can even relate.
Say thanks. Right?
It's like what I'm gaining from the relationship is secondary to the actual relationship. And if we're missing that part, if we only appreciate what God gives us. It's like a guy wrote to the Rebbe that he lives in Yerushalayim and he has 10 kids and he doesn't have money and he's asking for a bracha for parnasa. So the Rebbe writes him, I was very happy to hear that you're healthy and well. I was very happy to hear that you are happily married. You have a good marriage. Very happy to hear that you have 10 children, healthy and going in the ways of Torah and mitzvahs. And I was very happy to hear that you actually live in Eretz Yisrael. I was very happy to hear that
all the positives.
You actually live in Yerushalayim,
Like
the Holy Land. And thank you for giving me all this good news. And then, P.S. P.S. is just the, sometimes the P.S. is actually the whole.
Remember to give me maser.
The P.S. If you would have been more thankful to Hashem for all the things that you have,
Right.
for all the things that you have, you wouldn't be blocking your flow, your channel.
Right.
So it's not that we obviously we thank Hashem when we get a gift, when something comes our way, a beautiful thing comes. Wow, Hashem, thank you so much. He says, but if you're lacking the fact that you even have a relationship with Hashem, if you're lacking the thanking, meaning that you're not appreciating that relationship itself, then we're missing a big thing. So we have to be very thankful for the relationship alone. And then what the relationship brings is like something else.
It's like a bonus.
Like if the Rabbi gave you $1, right? The Rabbi gave you $1. You don't appreciate the dollar. You appreciate the fact that it was the Rabbi that gave it to you. And so it means you have some kind of a connection with it. You have a relationship. I got $1 from him. I got something from him, right? So I'm not appreciating the dollar itself as $1. I'm appreciating the connection that we have. So over here also appreciate the connection with Hashem. So Tanya tells us as much as we're going to appreciate, to love Hashem, but love, it's not comparable to the actual level of, for example, in the case of Avraham Avinu, the attribute of Chesed said to God, while Avraham Avinu was around, I was unemployed. Because Avraham Avinu did everything, so I was unemployed. I didn't know what to do. But still, Avraham Chesed is not comparable to the attribute of Chesed itself.
No.
So you write, in page 57, the Chayenu. So who is Meiri Olav Hashalom? So the teacher of the Alter Rebbe was the middlet Magid. Meiri Olav Hashalom is referring. He said, "I'm going to preface this essay with what I heard from my teacher of blessed memory." Who is his teacher? The middlet Magid. Middlet Magid was Rabbi Dovber, and he was the rabbi of Mizrich, so they call him middlet Magid. Peace to be him. Peace be to him, on the verse, and I am dust and ashes. Now, who said I'm dust and ashes? Yeah, Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu said to Hashem, when he was pleading for the city of Sodom, and he was beseeching Hashem to forgive them or not to destroy. So he said, who am I to even speak to you? I'm dust and ashes.
Right, like the ashes. Our
father Avraham, peace be to him, said this of the illumination from his soul which radiated in his body from the light of the supreme chesed. He says his neshama. Remember we spoke a few days ago about each person has a neshama coming from one guy. The neshama is mainly from the right, one guy the neshama is mainly from the left. So Avraham Avinu knows the root, the core of his neshama, and he says, I know where I'm coming from. Which means his soul which radiated in his body from the light of the supreme chesed. And that is his attribute, the attribute of Avarab. So Avraham Avinu had magnanimous love, great love, that derived from the parent Sephira called Chesed of Atzilus. So Avraham Avinu is tapping all the way to Atzilus. He knows where his powers are coming from. So when Avraham Avinu says, I'm dust and ashes, it doesn't mean that he doesn't know who he is. I mean, right now we just see that Avraham Avinu knows exactly where he's coming from. Chesed of Atzilus. Avraham Avinu had such intense love to God that his love to God made him like a merkava. Now, what is a merkava? Chariot. What's so special about a chariot?
It carries everything. It's like
the uniqueness of a chariot. Not that it carries you. The uniqueness of the chariot that it doesn't that it's completely nullified to the rider. Merkava. So it becomes a vehicle to the rider, but it's completely nullified to the rider. Like your car.
You just
your car
in there,
is a chariot.
You're just in there.
You can get on your car right now, and you can decide to go home, we'll take you home. You decide to go to Orlando, we'll take you to Orlando. It has no say in the matter.
Right.
You never wake up and say to the car, by the way, get ready, tomorrow we're heading out.
We're not far off, actually.
No, yeah.
Couple more years, you say, excuse me,
if you had a horse,
I'm taking the, I'm gonna.
No, but even if it's going to happen, which may be
We joke, but it's the future. At some point, you're not gonna have to do nothing but get in it.
That's why you have artificial intelligence, right?
Exactly.
But still, the car is not going to tell you we're not doing it.
Right.
Because okay, you want to go there, we'll go. So the idea of Merkava and Avraham Avinu is called Merkava because of its nullification to God, complete nullification. No say in the matter. You want to jump off the cliff? I'm jumping off the cliff. Doing something the completely opposite of who he was, which was just a chesed, and doing the Akedah. Going through the whole thing with Yitzchak. So Avram's degree of nullification to God was that of a vehicle to its driver, having no independent will whatsoever. This is even greater than the subservience of a slave to his master, for the slave retains a will of his own. Although the slave does everything what the master says, but he still has a will of his own. His inner will didn't change. If you were to interview the slave and you say, what is your dream? What would you want? He wouldn't necessarily say things that the master wants. He would want things for himself. He has his own will, which he's entitled to. But Avraham Avinu, in his relationship to Hashem, was like a Merkava. And that's why it says, and it wasn't just him, it was the patriarchs, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It says, Ha'avos hein a Merkava. The patriarchs were like a Merkava, all of them, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Each served Hashem in their own way, but they were all completely nullified to Hashem. Sakadai tachamina shebechinas chesed v'avu shema v'sfiros elyon me'ein v'sug mahus midasav v'rabu shel Avraham Avinu alav shalom. It would have come to your mind, you might have thought to think, or you might have think that Avram's love is similar to the love that exists upstairs in the higher world. Now, one might possibly assume that the type of chesed and love as it exists above in the supernal Sefirot is of similar nature to the attribute of abundant love exemplified by our father Avram, peace be to him.
But in a way you could interpret that the love here, could be higher because we are so low here that to feel that love at that level, it could be much more powerful because we have a lot of how do you call it? Yes,
here
and the opposite
challenges.
Right down here, it's more,
so
it's greater.
There is no challenge. Everything is.
No, I see.
You mean down here it's greater?
What you said is correct in terms of, you can say the novelty of it is amazing.
Right.
Meaning the chidush of it is so great that someone lowly as we are can have love to Hashem. But at the same time, can we compare the love to God that exists in the higher world than the love that exists over here? Can we compare the chesed of this world, the chesed of Asiyah, to chesed of Atzilus? It's incomparable. It's like comparing the ashes to the wood.
Right. There you go.
That's why they say one might possibly assume that the type of chesed and love as it exists above in the supernal Sefirot is similar to the nature of abundant love exemplified by our father Avram. Listen to this, surpassing it infinitely. Surpassing it infinitely, not just surpassing it by far. Infinitely, like this is finite and this is infinite. The chesed that exists above. For it is known of the supernal midot, attributes, that though their mode of emanation is finite, they themselves are essentially without end or limit. The midot that we have here, your chesed is finite. How much chesed you can do?
As much as you can. You're going to be limited.
But as much as you can, it's always limited. Somebody wants tzedakah, you can give him tzedakah, but at some point you can't. There's a limit of what you can do. The limit to how much time you can give to somebody. Everything you do is limited.
Yeah.
Everything you want to do is limited. But on the other hand, when you speak about the attributes above, it says they themselves, the chesed themselves, has no without end or limit. Because the infinite Ein Sof is actually radiates and vested within them. And Hashem and his, we mentioned yesterday also that Hashem and his vessels are one when we speak about the world of Atzilut. On the other hand, when it comes to the soul of man that is enclosed in material things, in the physical, its attributes are finite and limited. To revert to the above example, it is abundantly clear that the supernal Sephira of Chesed is infinitely loftier and more wondrous than its worldly counterpart. The worldly counterpart is finite, and the Chesed above is infinite. Sephira of Chesed is infinitely loftier. The attribute of Chesed and love in Avram's soul, which was vested within his body. Nevertheless, one might possibly assume that its attributes are of the same type as the supernal attributes. And regarding to this, for that thought, for that possibility, assuming that there is some kind of similarity, Avraham Avinu said the statement, "I am dust and ashes." This is why he said, "I am dust and ashes." He says, just like the ashes are the essence of and substance of the burnt wood, that's the substance of it. He says it's amazing that a human being cannot create something from nothing like God, but he cannot even turn something into nothing.
Right.
You cannot create something from nothing, and you cannot turn something into nothing. Why? Why am I saying it? Because even a piece of wood, you want to cause it to disappear, there's still ashes, there's still evidence. That's why most criminals are usually get caught.
Yeah, they leave evidence.
They leave evidence. It's forensic, and they go and they get caught.
A little drop of blood, semen,
something there, yeah.
Ripped shirts,
hair,
fingernail, skin,
a blade of hair. Yeah.
Something gets left behind.
So it says, just like ashes, which are the essence and substance of the burnt wood. The wood was previously composed of the four basic elements: fire, air, water, and earth, of which all matter is compounded. We all comprise these four elements. So the three elements of fire, water, and air to take off when you burn something. You burn it, the only thing that is left is earth. And were consumed in the smoke that came into being through their combination, as is known. One thing that the fire does not have domination over is ashes, is the dust, the earth itself. You can burn the forest, but you can't burn the ground. The ground remains the ground. You can look dirty, they go black, but the ground will remain. Now the whole of the essence of the wood, with its tangibility and substantiality, its matter and its form in terms of length, width, and density, which were visible to the eye before it was burnt, derived basically from the element of earth within it, meaning that the element of earth is the more dominating one. Except that the fire, water, and air were also compounded in it, comprised of it. The earth is the most material of them all. Because if you look at fire, it doesn't have much substance, and air doesn't have much substance. Water has some substance, but the main one is the earth.
No.
The earth is the most material of them all. All of the elements having dimensions of length, width, and density, which is not the case with fire and air. And even water that does contain these dimensions of length, width, and density appears only sparingly in wood. Now, as to all the dimensions in wood of length, width, and density, all is of the earth, and all returns to earth. To the ashes that remain after the fire, water, and air have been separated from it. The ash that remains is what was formerly the essence of the wood. Now, just as there is neither quantitative nor a qualitative resemblance or proportion between the ashes and the essence of the tree, which before being burnt had sizable dimensions of length, width, and density. You can't compare the ashes to the tree. Even though the wood is its very essence and substance, and from it, the wood, did it, the ash, come into being. Where does the wood come from? If we said the main ingredient is the earth, is the ashes, then although it came from it, now it's so unrecognizable that it can't even relate the tree that was here before to the ashes that are now on the ground after the fire. So what is this analogy comes to tell us? Precisely so, metaphorically speaking, obviously, speak of his distinctive attributes, the attribute of kindness, the attribute of kindness and love which radiated within him and was vested in his body. Although it was this very attribute of the love and supreme chesed of Atzilus that radiated in his soul, which was a chariot, as we said before, it was a Merkava, which was a chariot to the will of heaven. Nevertheless, as it descended downward to vest itself in the body, although it's the body of Avraham Avinu, but it went down to the body by means of the evolution of the worlds from one level to another, by means of many contractions. Ein dimion, there's no resemblance, no semblance. Ve'erech ma'us eirava meirva ma'us eirava v'chesed shvatzilus. There was no semblance or proportion between the essence of the light, of the love that radiated within Avraham Avinu, within him, and the essence of the light, of the love and supreme chesed of Atzilus. There's no comparison. The source to the outcome.
So he was always like that, even before he said, Hashem said, okay, you found me. At 75, he was always this person, such extreme kindness, even as a young man or as a kid.
Well, Avinu found Hashem, two opinions, one is 3, one is 40.
3? Right, I heard 40.
But 75, the Torah starts speaking about him.
Right.
Parshas Lech Lecha. Right, at the end of Parshas Noach, it says about Avram's birth, and then it speaks about the children that were the world, were in the world at that time, and then Parshas Lech Lecha starts speaking about.
But was it like I haven't read the Zohar. Was it always you always had this light about him, this aspect of Chesed, even when he chopped up the idols, he always had this way about him. He was always different from everyone else.
Kindness, yeah. He
was just a different kind of guy in his time. That Hashem already had a focus on him.
Yes, of course.
And we as the Jews, we have the tiny remnant of what Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, because we're Jewish. We have the gift.
Hebrews. Hebrews comes from Avraham.
Okay.
So except of the sort of proportion and semblance that exists, metaphorically speaking, between the essence of the element of earth, which became ashes, and its essence and quality in its original state as a tree, pleasant to the sight and good for food. That's a statement from Genesis 2:9. Very similar is indeed the incomparability of Avram's chesed and the chesed of Atzilus exceeds the incomparability of the ashes and the tree. So meaning it's much greater. It's like saying like a drop in the ocean.
Right.
But it's just for us somewhat to relate to the tremendous difference between the two. But in reality it's even greater difference. It's like a drop might have still a connection to the ocean. It says it's so much, meaning chesed of Avram, the chesed of Avram is so minute in comparison to the chesed of Atzilus.
The great tree.
So it says the ashes and the tree is just an example, but it's so much further in reality. These two, ashes and the tree, have more in common. They have more closeness than Avram's chesed and the chesed of Atzilus. The chesed, the source where he received his chesed.
No, I was going to ask if when Mashiach comes, I heard that these feelings are going to be maybe a little bit closer to the Hasil or not?
When time Mashiach comes, one of the things that Mashiach is going to bring is the concept of Re'iyah, of seeing. That Moshe Rabbeinu was wanted the Jewish people to be capable of seeing. He said to Hashem, Ebron ve'eres, so I want to see it. And afterwards he said to the Jewish people, Va'ato Yisrael Shema. Now Israel, listen. You have to hear, because you're not in that level of seeing. Because Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to bring Mashiach already then. So really what Mashiach is about, the concept of Re'iyah, of seeing. So seeing godliness. Now what we are experiencing is obscurity. We don't see the truth. We don't see the godly truth that gives life to the world, to us. If we would in a way that the bechira would go away, our free choice.
Right, we wouldn't have free choice.
But that's primarily the time of Mashiach, is the time of seeing, being able to, like they had the Jewish people had that experience at the splitting of the sea, where they pointed and they said, Keli Vanveo, this is God, and I will glorify Him. So
they saw everything.
So that's why it says, we are going to see similar.
Every Jew saw his specific oppressor who tortured him there, and he specifically saw him. He knew it was his face, he knew exactly who it was. All these Jews, millions of people, and they each saw their own oppressor. It's not even possible.
The main thing is they saw the revelation of God.
What's the difference to see the split of the water and a baby born?
It's all a miracle, yes. It's very true.
So today, it's a good question, but in our time, I said it before, there's the concept of Nitna Reshus Latoy Litos. It says, if Hashem wanted to split the sea, why did He need the strong eastern wind? It always says that there was a Ruach Kedem, the Ruach Kedmo, the expression was a strong wind. So why did He need the wind to come? Split the sea, command the sea to stand up. So the sea stands up. Why you have to? And the same thing with the story of Purim. Miracle, right? Hashverosh already decreed that he's going to kill all the Jews in one day. And suddenly everything changes. So Esther comes to the picture, Mordechai, and things changing. Why does Hashem wanted to create a miracle? Why do you need Mordechai and Esther? Make the miracle. So it says, Nitna Reshus Litos, in our time, Hashem always gives you the option to say, the 6-day war was just, the Israeli soldiers were very brave.
But no.
They were very bold, very brave, so they took initiative, and that's why they're victorious. The splitting of the sea, the Jewish people, they were there at the right place at the right time. It was a tsunami or whatever.
It's nature.
And so there's always room for the skeptics. Reshut lato'eh lit'ot. Permission, Hashem gives permission to the one who makes mistakes to make the mistake. Because if I take away,
No, I understand.
meaning imagine if Hashem,
He does it with everything, though.
if a lot of people about tshuva, why are they talking about tshuva? Because their reality is shattered in their face so aggressively that they couldn't explain anything else but Hashem. Like we had a neighbor that grew up in a kibbutz. He became religious because he was in the army, and a missile fell. His entire platoon died. He was the only person that survived. He could not explain it any other way but the hand of God picking him out of this and deciding that he should have a different life.
That's all it takes.
So the same thing in Yetzias Mitzrayim. There's still people who would say, I think it was the Tzemach Tzedek, he had once a debate with...
that it could happen in a way.
No, the third Lubavitch Rebbe, he said that he had once a private audience with one of the Zionists, those Zionists that were connected with the group of the Enlightenment movement, that they were called Maskilim. So he said, even if I would have created right now the splitting of the sea, it would still be a non-believer. I created it in front of his face. Why? Hashem still has to give you permission to doubt. In your mind, but in time of Mashiach, you wouldn't have that. You would have such clarity that there would be no room for error.
Yeah, it's like the pumping of the heart.
That's pretty much it.
There's
right
no
there.
way to explain that.
You can't explain it. It's so true.
Nobody can.
But nobody ever. That's why when
you can deny. Because you are.
What's even funnier?
Just go against.
When somebody dies,
people get used to natural.
Right. When someone dies, they always know why he died. He was so young. What happened? Why he died? His heart stopped. This stopped. How did he die? They have to know how. It doesn't comprehend in their mind that something should just end, because that's the way Hashem constructed us the same way.
It reminds me of a rabbi.
I just think it's
going to go. Rabbi Lalenu lost his son.
I didn't mean negative.
A baby boy was born, and 10 days later, there was something in his heart.
Now,
a long time ago, and he asked the doctor, how something like this happened. So the doctor says to him, "You're asking me how something like this happened? You should ask, how is it that 7 billion people, they didn't have that condition that your son had?" Meaning the miracle is that 7 billion people, all their systems are in unison and they are synchronized together, and they're working so perfectly in unison. If one of them is deciding not to cooperate, the whole body could be, a person can be dead in no time, God forbid. He said, this is the question you need to ask. How is it that 7 billion people, their heart is functioning the way it's supposed to function?
It's true. So, they don't think about the heart beating, though. It's a miracle in its own right. And it beats Yud-Kei, Yud-Kei, Yud-Kei. It beats in the name of
the Yesem is that Avdi Balof Mavdola is indeed the incomparability of Avram's chesed, and the chesed of Atzilus exceeds the incomparability of the ashes and the ash and the tree by thousands of degrees of separation. It's so much greater, the difference between Avram's chesed and the chesed of Atzilus. So why do you give me this analogy of ash and tree?
Right.
So he tells you, the Torah likes to speak to say things in a way that we can hear, that we can understand. Nevertheless, the Torah speaks in human phraseology by way of allegory and metaphor. Hence, its use of the analogy of the tree, despite its inherent disproportion. So, although it's disproportionate, the Torah gives us something to hang on to, something to relate to. That's why it's there. So surely then, the attribute and soul powers of an ordinary Jew in this world bear absolutely no comparable relation to the Sefirot from which they derive. You have no idea the sources that you came from, how much superior they are to what you have in you right now.
Right.
Nonetheless, since the soul powers do after all derive from the Sefirot and are illuminated by them, he can attain some degree of understanding of godliness from that dimension of the soul that animates his body. And this is the meaning of the verse, Mibsori echze Eloka, from my flesh shall I behold God. So the takeaway from today's Tanya, you have similarities, in parentheses, similarities to the divine, but remember that your human experience is way limited in relation to the divine.
Thank you, Rabbi. That was awesome. Thank you very much.